Brilliant. A warm welcome, everyone. I'm André, the Director of Charity Development here at the Lloyds Bank Foundation. Just before we get going, just a few housekeeping things to go through. Fire exits signposted are through the signposted doors from this room. Bathrooms are available on the corridor to the right. I'll be starting things off today with an overview of our skills-based volunteering program and what we've learned from 10 years of working in delivering it in partnership with the Lloyds Banking Group. We'll then hear from our panel on their perspectives on the win-win-win, as we're calling it, of skilled volunteering. And finally, from Matt Hyde, the Foundation's incoming Chief Executive. We're delighted to be here today in this historic space and grand room where someone earlier on said to me, will there be dancing and music available next door? But in a space with a rich history of volunteering. Toynbee Hall, as some of you may know, will be celebrating its 140th anniversary this year, having been founded on Christmas Eve in 1884. The radical founding vision was to create a centre for social reform and research where students could come to live and work as volunteers in London's East End. This space has hosted many significant speeches and has seen huge social impacts, and you can see here at the lectern etched some of those speeches and who's delivered them over the years. So it felt like the right place to come together today to share the impact that we've seen and the learning that we've taken from 10 years of partnering with the Lloyds Banking Group to create social impact through matching skilled volunteers with small and vital local charities who can use their skills. So for those of you who aren't as aware of us and our work, we're an independent charitable foundation funded by the Lloyds Banking Group, and we work in partnership with small and local charities, people and communities to change lives and working towards a more just and compassionate society. And through unrestricted funding, support to develop and influencing policy and practice, we help small and local charities to thrive, communities to grow stronger, and people to overcome complex issues so that they can transform their lives. I wanted to talk a little bit more about our approach. We do what we do because as a foundation, we recognize that far too many people experience injustice and inequality in our society. And that's why we partner with small and local charities and with whole communities through unrestricted funding and support to develop. Unrestricted funding, as it says on the tin, it means that our partners can use the funding how they see fit in line with their vision, mission, and strategy. And we work alongside charities and communities to influence policy and practice. And in this way, we aim to move towards that more just and compassionate society and making a lasting difference in people's lives. To give you a sense of the spread of our work, we work with charities and invest in communities across England and Wales. In 2023, we supported 706 charities through our programs, including 18 through our national policy and influencing programs. Our regionally based managers hold the relationships with charities in each area, which you can see on the map with the green circles. And in 2023, we also supported work in 12 communities to find new ways of working together in designing, resourcing, and delivering services for the benefit of local people. And that you can see with the orange dots on the map. And finally, 420 charities accessed our various development support offers. But as you may have heard in relation to the foundation, we are more than just a funder. Alongside funding, we support charities through a range of development support that enables them to thrive over the long term. We provide development support because we know that small charities have a huge impact and value, and that they flexibly respond to the needs within their communities. But we also know that small charities are underfunded, under-resourced, and under huge pressure. And when we talk about support, it covers a really wide range of areas, from strengthening governance, building strategy, developing leadership skills. And charities also access a range of support tailored to their needs, from one-to-one consultancy, learning and networking opportunities, to skilled volunteering partnerships with the banking group, a key part of our offer. And these types of support work together and complement each other to enable charities to do what they ultimately do best. And we know that development support enhances the value of the funding that we offer and also works in tandem with it to enable small charities to become even stronger and more resilient. And today we're here to talk about a hugely important element of our development support, and that is our skills-based volunteering program. When we talk about skills-based volunteering, we're talking about people using their professional skills in areas from HR, marketing, or finance on a voluntary basis to help a nonprofit organization. And this can take the shape of one-off pieces of work or projects or ongoing and longer-term support. And for over 10 years, we've partnered with the Lloyds Banking Group to create opportunities for employees to use their skills to support small and local charities. And as we'll see this afternoon, this has benefits for all three parties: the volunteer, the charity, and the business. And to take a bit of a stroll down memory lane, we started back in 2014 with mentoring programs, enabling senior bank colleagues to support charity CEOs. And since then, we've delivered over 2,800 opportunities for group employees to volunteer to support small charities. And if we look at what the offer entails today, we've got a range of offers in terms of time commitment and individual and group opportunities to make skilled volunteering work for a range of charities and volunteers. One-off support and longer-term support sessions, online group sessions where volunteers and charities can test thinking, work through a challenge they're facing together, or get 6 months of skilled support on a project. Opportunities for coaching, training, and mentoring, medium to longer term, pairing bank employees with charity staff to offer support. And trustee opportunities, which is pairing bank employees looking to explore trusteeship with charities seeking to recruit new trustees, enabling access to skills needed on boards to build robust leadership and governance. And we found that having a range of offers is a great way to support a broad range of volunteers and charities to get involved. Having one-off and group opportunities encourages new volunteers who might be hesitant to get involved and find out how their skills could benefit small charities. Whereas the longer-term opportunities are great for those volunteers who are ready to make that longer-term commitment. And in terms of that flexibility, we've also developed all of these offers to be available to take place remotely, which means that charities can access this corporate support wherever they are, where they might previously have struggled to do so. And this means that charities, therefore, have an access to a wider range of skills and expertise at their disposal. And so, over 10 years of delivering skills-based volunteering programs, we've seen the value that they add to all of those who are involved. And we wanted to share our learning from this work. So we conducted a piece of research looking at the value of skilled volunteering and how to do it well. We carried out interviews, surveys, focus groups with volunteers and charities who've participated in skilled-based volunteering. We've looked at existing literature and external evaluations, and in particular, we were delighted that our friends, including Pro Bono Economics and Pilot Light, who I believe are here today, have also been doing their own research into skilled volunteering, and quite recently in one of their reports talked about workplace volunteering making staff happier, healthier, and more productive. And so from our research, we've identified what we've called 3 distinct wins from skilled volunteering. We found that it gives small charities access to the professional skills they need, contributes to volunteers' professional development and career progression, and fosters confident, motivated, and loyal employees. And now I'll take you through each of those wins in turn. So when we think about the volunteer benefits, we found that volunteers themselves gained new skills or strengthened existing ones through volunteering. That aided their own professional development, helping them to build their CV, but also volunteers' confidence grew through helping another organization in a different environment or context. Volunteering also contributed to a greater sense of fulfillment, particularly when volunteering for a cause or a community that they care about or have a personal connection to, be it through lived experience, family connection, or location. And volunteering also enhanced pride in their place of work, and we found that volunteers appreciated that their employer facilitated and enabled such opportunities. They were also able to connect with others in their organization who they previously had very little or no contact with, also growing their own professional network. And when we think about the business win, what we saw was that skilled volunteering programs contribute to staff learning and development. They directly impact the strength of a workforce and its well-being, as well as building staff connection and relationships. The social value that was added through volunteering also has a direct impact on the business's reputation. It enabled volunteers to gain a better understanding of the broader context and challenges that people within the communities face, and can therefore lead to improved support for customers or colleagues who may themselves face the same issues. And it also leads to stronger employee engagement due to an alignment in values and the personal fulfillment and pride felt by staff volunteers.
For organisations that aren't offering skills-based volunteering at the moment, I would encourage them to think, where do they have skills and opportunities that they can reach wider, because it's a win-win not only for the charities that you support, but actually it brings so much greatness into the business. The feel-good factor for the colleagues that work for that organisation as well. You can't put money on that. We've all got a social responsibility to help and support people, but also how we open some of the doors for the bureaucracy and the challenges that the charities face on a day-to-day basis to let their voice be heard. I appreciated the support from my manager in the organisation with doing the skills-based volunteering, and I think it just makes you realise what a great organisation I work for.
For charities, we also found that they gain knowledge, skills, and experience for free that can often be hard to access elsewhere or unaffordable for a small charity. They grow in confidence, and their organization became more resilient. And ultimately, skills-based volunteering helps a charity to strengthen its operations, its systems, its processes, which in turn puts charities in a stronger position to keep showing up and supporting people facing complex issues. Charities were able to connect with others and build new networks outside of the direct volunteering relationship, and these included with other volunteers, useful contacts, other businesses, which links to one of our learnings that I'll talk a little bit more about shortly. And with the charity sector facing higher demands for its support, but greater pressure on resources, the additional and specific value that skilled volunteering offers is needed now more than ever, and particularly with funds raised focusing on the delivery of frontline services. Having volunteers to support stronger systems and processes can aid in their own effectiveness and efficiency and improving what they do best. Let's hear from one of our charities.
Volunteering is really important in community work. I couldn't afford it as a small charity, and I would recommend it to every organization. A volunteer is giving their time to bring all the skills and knowledge that they have and focusing on your need exactly. Lisa was very open. Our relationship was very friendly. We were in a process of growing as an organization. She tried to make me proud of myself, believe in what I am doing. I started to grow more in my role and also gain more skills as a leader. It was a good win.
Brilliant. So we've heard there from one of the charities that we've supported. And so from the research, we've identified 6 recommendations or foundations for success that we wanted to share to support other organizations to get involved in skilled volunteering and ensuring that it's as impactful as it can be. And the first one is around choice and variety. Choice and variety matter both for volunteers and for charities. Whether it's one-off or ongoing volunteering, individual or group initiatives, and the option of remote and online volunteering opportunities, variety enables more volunteers to engage. Skills-based volunteering can generate this wider range of opportunities. When we think about volunteers from business, they need support to translate their skills to a very different sector. And this can be achieved through information sharing, onboarding, linking volunteering to staff learning and development opportunities. And this translation exercise often leads to both parties realizing that they have far more to offer, but also to gain than they initially thought. The third point is around investing in the initial partnership. We know that this can generate longer-term benefits, with volunteering partnerships often extending beyond the initial activity. And this means setting expectations for both parties and matching commitments, giving volunteers and charities the time to identify the opportunities that best suit them. The fourth is around support for volunteering needing to come from leadership and be embedded in an organization's culture. And this takes the form of role modeling and direct support from senior leaders, line managers, and peers. And it also means an organization-wide commitment that's reflected in both policy and communications. Fifth, it's around seeking out partnerships with small charities in particular can maximize the impact of the charity and the volunteer. Smaller teams and income streams means that volunteers can have a much greater impact by working with small charities while in turn strengthening their own skills by applying them in a different context. And lastly, when working with any charity, it's important to identify what support that charity needs and where volunteers can have the biggest impact. And this also means businesses identifying the skills that their employees have to offer and seeking out opportunities to match those skills to the charities that need them. So we've been able, as a foundation, to use our position as a corporate foundation to facilitate these programs and see this impact, but hope that our learning shows that there's potential to create a broader range of skilled volunteering opportunities to suit a business or charity of any size, focus, or location. And in fact, as I've just mentioned, that variety is key to success. And we do hope that our learning will show how similar skilled volunteering offers can be initiated and delivered by other businesses or charities alike. And so, having talked through the report and some of the reflections, we are going to move to a panel discussion which will bring this win-win-win that we've identified and we found to life as we hear from Lloyds Banking Group colleagues on the benefits to volunteers and to the business, and from charities that have been supported by skilled volunteers. So I'm going to introduce the panel and then gracefully make my way across to the seats on the other side. So starting off, we've got Jacob, who's the operations manager at our charity partner Life Centre, who received training and coaching from Lloyds Banking Group volunteers. And Life Centre supports individuals across West Sussex who've had an unwanted sexual experience. Jacobs also has a keen interest in mental health and is committed to breaking down stereotypes around mental health and encouraging others to reach out for support and to champion the self. So thanks for joining us, Jacob. Next, we go to Kathy, who's the chief exec of Rochdale Connections Trust, which provides domestic abuse services, family support services, and targeted youth support. And Kathy was mentored by a colleague from the bank who then went on to become a trustee for the charity, again showing where individual engagements can lead to longer-term connections. We've got Tom, who works on economic crime prevention at the Bank. He's a group ambassador for the East of England. And Lloyds Banking Group ambassadors are senior leaders who represent the group across the nations and regions of the UK. And they help the group to better understand the specific needs and interests of the places they represent. And because I think, as I've just said there with Jacob, people are more than just their job titles, I asked, well, what's something interesting? Anything else you want to share? And so we have the pleasure of also having a former semi-professional footballer who will be joining us on the panel in Tom, who's now hung up his boots and serves as the non-exec director of the Cambridgeshire Football Association. And albeit not through us, but Tom is also a trustee of the Internet Watch Foundation. And we also have Priya, who's going to be joining us online, showing that skills-based volunteering can also be done remotely. Priya leads operational excellence in the Chief Credit Office at Lloyds Banking Group. She's the co-chair of the group's returners community, a mental health advocate, and an enthusiastic culture catalyst with a passion for driving positive change. And Priya is also a trustee for one of our charity partners, Wickham Women's Aid. So, panel, I'm going to invite us to join in the seats as I join you on that side as well. Brilliant. And just like that, the tech works, and we have sight of Priya. Welcome, Priya.
Hiya.
So
Excited to have joined virtually.
Brilliant. I'm happy that we could facilitate that. I wanted to start with Jacob. If you could talk a little bit more about the support that you received from the Lloyds Banking Group volunteers. If you could just bring that to life for us.
Yeah, sure. So I initially about 18 months ago had 6 sessions of mentorship with somebody from the Lloyds Banking Group, and very more recently have signed up for the new managers program as well. So I've got a bit of experience across a lot of the things that you offer, which is really great. And it's amazing really how that's helped me develop as a leader. I'm quite new to leadership, quite new to managing in my organisation as well. And having that external perspective from someone at Lloyds Banking Group was really helpful. Quite often, as I'm sure many of you will know, you can get stuck in the work that you're doing, and your environments are quite small and quite focused. So to have somebody come in alongside me and really show me and lead me through sort of my own development and my own thought processes in terms of who I am as an individual and who I am as a leader and what I can bring to our clients was really, really helpful, to the extent where actually a lot of things that I saw as weaknesses, a lot of things that I saw as things that I could be better at, managed to shift those around and view them more as strengths now, which is really helpful and has just sort of really built up my own perspective of myself and confidence to sort of go forward and lead in the organisation that I'm in. You were speaking a little bit there about how for small charities it's really difficult to find the resources to be able to develop managers and leaders within organisations, and even further to sort of look at succession planning for charities as well, and how actually for the work that we do, every penny that we've got, we want to spend on our clients. We want to spend on investing in our services that we offer. And so actually professional development for leaders and for managers often takes a bit of a back foot. I have had mentorship through different voluntary organisations and that sort of thing before, and actually the service provided by Lloyds to me was nothing short of miraculous in terms of the support that I got, and also how the consistency with which it was received and the quality of that as well just really came through in those 6 sessions, and then since then in the new managers program too, which has been really great.
It's, some of the things that you talked about there, Jacob, that outside perspective, that sense of being able to have someone else who isn't in the thick of it realizing and actually providing some validation and affirmation that actually you're doing a pretty damn good job at what you do is also one of the things that we hear quite consistently from many of the other charity partners that we work with. I'm going to come to you, Priya, and it would be helpful to hear from you about how and why you got involved with volunteering through the banking group.
Yeah, sure. So actually, in terms of volunteering more generally, stems from a young age where I used to take part in paired reading, supporting children with learning difficulties, and then sort of volunteering at the local temple for Hindu festivals. And I love this element of giving back. And then when I came to Lloyds, and it was one of the reasons why I joined Lloyds, but I noticed there was a sort of array of things that I could get involved in. So over the years, I've been involved in being a school governor for a primary school, being a school governor for a special educational needs school, having been a business mentor through the schools, through the School of Social Entrepreneurs and Grow Movement. I've also more recently been a business mentor through Lloyds Banking Group's Mentor Black Business program. And then I guess through the foundation, through sort of skills exchange program, working with Amazing Grace Spaces, and now currently a sort of board trustee for for Wickham Women's Aid. And I guess, hopefully this sort of shows that clear passion for sort of giving back to the community and supporting underprivileged or underrepresented communities. So if I kind of focus on those last 3 then, so if I think about the kind of Mentor Black business, her business was all around increasing access to education for underprivileged children. And my role was really to support her to take her business from a social enterprise to a charity and then set her up for scaling. So a lot of what I could apply and use my own personal sort of experience on was around sort of strategic experience and business experience. Then when I think about kind of Amazing Graces, the charity is about sort of providing accommodation to people experiencing homelessness. And my role within that was more of a shorter stint. So when you were talking about, sort of modes of how as an organization and as colleagues of Lloyds Banking Group, we can give back. It was really in that sort of shorter stint where I was able to support with digital skills and digital marketing to help them improve their sort of online presence. And then now, if I think about that kind of longer partnership with Wycombe's Women's Aid as a trustee, so Wycombe Women's Aid is all around providing shelter and support to women and children subject to violence, domestic violence. So if I think about my sort of skills at Lloyds and what I can apply, then really things around kind of risk, safeguarding, policy and governance, sort of tech know-how, finance, and then that clear sort of angle of being able to sort of constructively challenge but support as well. Personally, I've been subject to domestic violence as well, and I think so there's that sort of personal resonance there, and no one should ever feel sort of unsafe in their own home. So that was the sort of why to this particular charity and affiliation. I'm really proud to work for an organisation like Lloyds, because I think it does provide through the foundations just the breadth of opportunities for colleagues to be able to get involved in. And I think some of the things that make that easier are around kind of, it's easy, it's I guess easy to access in terms of, sometimes it's like, that you want to help and that you want to make a difference, but you don't really know sort of where to start and how to tap into these things. And I think through the sort of Lloyd's portal, it just makes that connect really seamless. And I think sort of whether it be sort of in kind of my Lloyd's career or sort of more broadly, I think across all of us, we have so many transferable skills that I don't even think that we realize until we sort of get into these situations. So I think, we've got so many of these that we've developed and can really use that to support charities that don't necessarily have access to such skills and resources. And, and I think, you alluded to this earlier around kind of, modes of being able to volunteer around sort of in-person, remote, short-term, long-term, all of that. I mean, I'm here with you remotely. Wickham's actually not far from where I live, but, a lot of our conversations are either over Zoom or Teams or in person. And what's really nice about that is that ultimately, from what could have maybe pre-COVID, where I would have been limited to only volunteer with an organization that was sort of close to where I live, now I can literally do that anywhere across the country, across the globe. So that yeah, I think it just makes it increases the size of the impact that we can have.
Really, really helpful there, Priya. I've got a quick question for you on, as you said, you started with that sort of short-term piece of work with Amazing Grace Spaces, and then over time you moved to Wickham Women's Aid. What was it that made you sort of come back for a bit more in terms of the volunteering experience?
Yeah, sure. Great question. So I think actually, so I was supporting Amazing Grace and the Black Business Entrepreneur at the same time. So the Amazing Grace sort of shorter stint, which was over a couple of, I think we had about 3 or 4 exchanges, whereas over a sort of shorter period versus kind of the Black Business Program, which was over sort of the course of a year. So, there was a lot more sort of longevity. And I think, if I think about sort of coming back for the year piece, I guess, versus the short term, I guess with the short term, you get to be able to sort of help in that sort of lens, but you kind of then sort of, don't have that kind of longevity piece, whereas connecting with somebody on the long term, watching them really increase their confidence, increase their resilience, just watch them grow. I mean, for the entrepreneur that I was supporting and helping her increase sort of access to education, we had so many challenges along that way, and my journey in that was just to sort of support her, and it was just it was one of the most enriching things. It really is hugely rewarding. And I think, you didn't necessarily ask the question, but I'll say it now in terms of, I think, whether it's short term or long term, I think, with these opportunities, they might be unpaid in terms of financially, but in terms of rewarding, they are hugely rewarding. And, I'd say to some extent, a lot more than the sort of, going into an office and doing the job we do. These getting involved in these experiences really make an impact, and they really sort of, as just mentioned, in terms of sort of, they really make an impact to the charities that we work with and the individuals that we support.
Brilliant. Really, really helpful. Thanks for sharing that, Priya. Kathy, I'm going to come to you, and if you could talk to us a bit more about the support that you received or your organisation received through volunteers. It would be great to hear that.
I was introduced to a chap called Glyn from the bank. And I think we decided to spend 2 or 3 sessions just to find out a little bit more about each other. He was very eager to help, but we weren't quite sure how he was going to help in the beginning. There were several things that I needed to do in terms of the charity. I was looking at pulling together a new strategic plan and a couple of other things. And I think in the end, we decided on he would help me pulling together a whole organisation risk assessment. It had been going round my mind for quite some time, and I'd done a lot of work around looking at risk and mitigation, but it just seemed like a huge task to do on my own. And none of the other board members had any experience of that. And I could have lifted a whole risk assessment from another charity and tweaked it to make it fit us. But I think through going through the process with Glyn, weekly or monthly when he came in, to really think about the risks and to think about what we did as a charity, and to go through with him and have that soundboard of again, somebody that, is outside of the charity listening to you, was really, really helpful. So it came in over several months really, and we worked together on it, building it up, and looking at the whole organisation, which was great. The trustees were really appreciative of that support. It didn't cost us anything. It was, great expertise that we didn't really have. Because I don't know if there's many other charity leaders here, but you are expected to know everything, aren't you? You're expected to be the expert in absolutely everything in the charity. Personnel, finance, building management, health and safety. And it's a big ask, really. And so to have somebody like Lynn come in with that expertise, it really gave me the confidence and that we were doing something, very good for the charity. So that's what he did. He came in over several months, and I think it went beyond the time that was kind of like normally allocated. And I really felt like he really supported me through that process. And I talked to him about other issues that I was having as well at the same time, and he helped with having a conversation about other things. And in fact, we helped him with an issue that he was having with his son at the time as well, which was nice to be able to offer him something back. So yeah, we developed that relationship over the time, and almost towards the end, we were thinking, well, I really appreciate this time that I have with him. It feels really confidential and really special. How can we keep it, really, I guess? So because he'd gone to the trustees and he presented the whole risk assessment, they knew him. And, I said, do you think there's a room on the board for him? And they were very eager to have him on the board, which was great. So I was able to kind of continue that relationship with him. And I really felt because he'd spent that time with me, getting to know me and getting to know the issues of the charity, he was in a really good position to take that role, more so than the other trustees, because we'd had some long-standing trustees who just turn up for the board meetings. But he became, you know.
The last that says it all.
Yeah, but because he really understood much more of the workings of the charity, I really felt like in the board meetings he had that understanding more.
I think, there, Kathy, you mentioned a couple of things which I think it's really important to sort of drive home. That first bit where you talked about getting the relationship right. It takes time, but having those conversations and working out what are we trying to get from this, it sounds to me like it's well worth taking the time to get that.
It definitely was. That
bit right.
Yeah.
But you also talked there about, the need, right? What did you need as an organization from that, and being able to find out, identify the piece of work around risk and then working through that. And, lastly, bringing in skills that you didn't have. Internally within the organization. So it sounded like, in a way, you've almost embodied some of the things we've talked about in terms of what it means, or some of the takeaways or the foundations for success. I'll come back to you in a bit, but I wanted to come to you, Tom. Earlier on, before we formally started, we were having a chat and we talked about sort of staff motivation and how many employees, particularly younger employees, almost feeling like actually it's an expectation to think about how they can contribute more widely. Could you give us a sense from your perspective on why the banking group offers skills-based volunteering opportunities? And, if there's another corporate out there with us in the room listening in, what should they be should they be considering this as well as a potential option?
Yeah. Thanks for the question on why, because I think anybody's why is probably one of the most fundamental questions you can ask, actually. And, why for me personally is, I've got a 5-year-old daughter that's had 2 open heart surgeries by the time she was two years old. So when, I owe her life to the NHS and charities that supported us. So therefore, I personally had to give something back. I just couldn't do anything other than that. So that's my why. And Lloyds has got a really powerful why as well, because our purpose is helping Britain prosper. We've been around on the high street 250 years helping people and businesses. And we know in our heart of hearts that if we're going to succeed as a bank, our communities and businesses and our people have to succeed as well. And that's why we want to help the communities succeed, and we want to be a force for good. Because without it, we haven't got a business, we haven't got a future. I think the other element, and there is part of me which is a real business person, and there is a strong business case, unequivocally, for this. So we talked about before, didn't we, about colleagues and talent. And you know, I mentor 3 people. I've got a team of about 15. I reckon at least 50% of the conversations I have about the development in their future touch on skills-based volunteering in one way, shape or another. 50% of those conversations. We have to have, and I have to have, in my day job, I run the technology that fights fraud and financial crime. We have to have some of the best technologists, data scientists in the world. Otherwise, we can't keep ahead of the fraudsters. I have to keep those people in our business. I could not keep them if I paid some of them £1 million. Honestly, that is the salaries that people go to for artificial intelligence. But the reason they stay with Lloyds Banking Group is because they believe they can make a difference. And we are more than just somebody that gives a paycheck. We allow people the time to go and do what they need to do. So, colleague retention, attraction is critical. I think, super quickly, just understanding customers. So, a lot of my team, we live in a nice suburb. We spend time talking to big businesses and technology companies. We are not, and we don't spend enough time, if we didn't do the skills-based volunteering, in the real world. Understanding, what is happening in terms of the cost of living crisis, what we need to change in terms of, when people get into arrears, how we need to really help people. We've got to get out with that kind of ivory tower in the real world, and skills-based volunteering is a huge help in that. And then finally, reputation is huge. It makes a difference, whether it be the trustees that we work with, whether it be conversations like this. We've got to be more than just a bank that makes money. We've got to be a bank that's committed to society, and we are.
Really helpful there, Tom, and talking about that connection back with social purpose. Jacob, I want to come back to you. If you could share with us a sense of the impact that you felt the work that you've the support that you've had through skills-based volunteering has had on your own organisation more widely. It'd be helpful to get a sense of that if you could bring that to life.
Sure, yeah. I think for me, the term license to lead really comes to the forefront. I think it's all well and good my CEO putting me in a leadership position and putting me on a senior management team and all of those things. But until somebody from outside of your organisation is telling you the same things and is verifying the same things that my CEO is telling me, actually the confidence in myself was never really going to come to fruition. And I think we can't really understate what that means, not just for me as an individual, but for our organisation too. If I've got the confidence to step out and lead in a way that I think my department should be led, and our organisation should be led, and to really influence the decisions that we're making and the directions that we're going in. And I've got the ability to do that, then our organisation is going to be better for it, our service is going to be better for it. And not only that, our CEO and my colleagues are going to have their time freed up to spend more time on concentrating on their roles, and particularly for the CEO, she's got the ability to leave me to do my job now and concentrate more on hers and invest her time in really developing the organisation and making sure that we're doing the best job that we can for supporting the survivors. And we all know as well, I think, that working for a charity is really hard. It takes a lot out of you, and you put a lot of yourself into it. And I think for me, my well-being is better for having had the quality of the coaching that I have had from Lloyds, and being able to rest confidently on the decisions that I'm making and the way that I'm leading. Makes me a calmer person in the office and amongst the teams that I lead, and amongst the organisation that I'm responsible for, which then in turn actually impacts everybody. Our client base, we see something like 700 people a year, and I have direct contact with all the people that are treating those individuals. And if I'm better at that, if I can do a better job at that, if I'm living out our values in a clearer way, then actually that's going to touch the lives of the individuals that we support in a really profound way, I think.
That's really helpful there, and I think that the idea of a license to lead is one of those things that I'm sure many in the room will sort of leave with that in their mind. We also talked about you talked about it, but also, Kathy, you also talked about that idea of charity leaders having to, in a way, rightly, wrongly, be all things to all people and thinking that through. If you could reflect on, from your vantage point, the sort of impact on your own organisation and what that meant, what would you say?
I think it, because Glyn came in quite regularly, the staff were, asking questions. Who's this guy? Couldn't see Cafe in the room. And so, I told all the staff what he was doing with us, and he was a senior member of Lloyds Banking Group, and he was spending time with me to pull this together. I think they felt, that's quite cool, that, isn't it? And you must think, we're worth it as a charity to spend this time with us. And then also because they did see him on a regular basis, and then he became a trustee, they did feel like, we really are, a charity worth people coming into and supporting us. So I think from their perspective, it was really good. From the trustees' perspective, they felt like, we were in a safe pair of hands with him. He'd done that piece of work with us. They got to know him a little bit, and he came on then onto the board, and that was really good. And for me, like Tom said and Jacob said, that the confidence that somebody giving you from outside the organisation is invaluable, really. So, now when I'm in groups of other charities and they say, I need some help with, pulling together a whole risk assessment and I'm a bit scared, I go, yeah, I can do that with you. I can do that. So, yeah. So it's passing on those, that kind of experience to other local charities that I've supported with in the same kind of, way, really.
Oh, that's really, really helpful, Kathy. Priya, I want to come back to you there. You've heard from Kathy and you've heard from Jacob in terms of their own sort of thoughts on the impact of skills-based volunteering, both on themselves, but also in terms of the organizations. What would be your response on that from the volunteer side of things be?
Yeah. I mean, firstly, Kathy, Jacob, thank you for sharing that. There's so much of that resonates, and that I've had, feedback on from guys that I've been supporting. And I guess as a volunteer, so I'm getting lots of feedback. Is the sound okay? I think I've lost all
Yes,
sound.
absolutely fine.
Okay, perfect. Seem to be back. Sorry about that. So I think in terms of personally, I think, the first is that I feel like it enables me to become a better senior leader in the organization. I feel like it enables me to it has developed sort of my sort of technical skills, but also my sort of softer skills around communication and personal impact. I said this before, it is really a nourishing and soul enriching and humbling experience, that opportunity to be able to, give back and make a difference, and really live to sort of what Tom was saying in terms of the sort of Lloyd's purpose around helping Britain prosper, which I think for me and Tom have a sort of similar resonance around, why we're volunteering and why we do things. I think in terms of my own sort of skills and experiences and building that. So think about, where why I'm doing what I'm doing in terms of what the future of this looks like, then ultimately build out a portfolio NED role. And I think, getting involved in these ways does help to grow my own experience and my skills, and creates that kind of route in. In terms of that, I mentioned this earlier in terms of the sort of just the chunk of transferable skills that we have to be able to help charities in a really meaningful way. So if I think about some of those from my perspective have been around kind of supporting and strengthening governance, around risk management, around sort of digital and IT skills, around kind of operations and operational resilience, financial management, and then really around kind of that sort of personal impact, confidence building, and all of those sorts of sort of softer skills. I think also the element of sort of aligning to my own purpose in creating that more sort of inclusive community that can operate on that sort of level playing field. And you know, again, sort of something that Tom said that really resonated, but that opportunity to role model and get more Lloyds Banking Group colleagues on board through sort of storytelling and you know, really showing the success of these partnerships.
Brilliant. That's really, really helpful to hear you sort of talk through that. And I'm sure that sort of looking across here in the room, that colleagues in the community engagement team at the bank will be very pleased to hear about how those strategies are. Those strategies are certainly working. Tom, I want to come to you, and both in your role at the bank, but also in terms of just your own roles as a manager. You know, if we've got other businesses thinking, well, where might we go with this? What should we be thinking about? What would you say?
Yeah, I'd probably say there's 4 things that businesses need to think about. The first is, like kind of quite bluntly and frankly, you've got to put the money where your mouth is. Businesses have to like cough up and support, and Lloyds do that in the sense that we effectively pay people to volunteer. We encourage people to go and do this skills-based volunteering, and they're paid for it. They do it during working hours. We also do match giving, so that for every hour that somebody invests as skill-based volunteering, we can make a contribution to the charity as well. So there's a real financial commitment, which is like really important. The other thing, and Priya mentioned it there, you know, within the bank, we've got to role model. You know, we saw pictures of our chief exec in some of those slides earlier. He's out there. We've got a whole heap of the executive committee. I've got so many of my peers, Priya's peers, that do the same thing. You know, there could have been, like, literally, I could be one of 100 people, and Priya the same, of people that would have come and talked today, because we all believe it in our core about what this is. So role modeling is really important. I also think, you know, we do have a lot of skills in the bank, but also the connection to connect, kind of a bit like what you were saying, Kathy, connect with you and Glyn, connect the skills with the opportunity and how that happens. And I think what the foundation does really, really well is create that menu of options that allows people to, with a skill set, to connect to the opportunity. So I think that's the third really important pillar. And then the final one is, like, skills-based volunteering is a fundamental part, in my mind, of professional development. So, you know, the people that I coach and support, you know, whether it be having more impact in a boardroom or in a meeting, that's the kind of thing you can do with charities, whether it be professional breadth, or whether it's, right, you know, in small charities, you just get things done, you can just make those decisions. You know, we need a bit more of that in a big bank with a bit of bureaucracy. So there's so much mutual learning, but businesses have to really grasp it.
Brilliant. That's really, really helpful there, Tom. And I think this idea that, you know, there's a mutual benefit there, that not only are you sort of thinking about what are the things that you can share, but equally what are the things that you too can and do learn from the process. So I wanted to give a big thank you to our panel for sharing with us their own reflections today. All right, musical chairs, we're back. So after sort of having heard from our panel and the sort of range of views and experiences of skills-based volunteering, what it's meant for them both individually, what it's meant for their organizations, the things that maybe they didn't expect before sort of engaging in that journey, I want to now hand over to Matt, who is the foundation's incoming chief exec. I could do a whole bio of all of that stuff, but I'm just going to go, Matt, over to you.
André, thank you. First gig in the new role. How exciting is that? Genuinely very excited to be here. Very, very proud to be joining the foundation in September, and particularly pleased that the first time I'm talking as incoming Chief Executive of the Lloyds Bank Foundation, is on a topic that I'm very, very passionate about and feel very personally connected with, which is volunteering and skills-based volunteering. And I think, you know, frankly, that panel says it all, really. I don't need to say anything. I could just leave at this point. But I thought those stories really bring to life the impact that volunteering has on volunteers, obviously on businesses and on small charities. So thank you to the panel. I am the co-founder of something called the Big Help Out, which I founded with Catherine Johnston from the Royal Voluntary Service. And we've just had the second year of the Big Help Out this weekend. It's the largest volunteering event in the UK, and this year was part of Volunteers Week, which obviously we were celebrating last week. And there's a lot of synergies between the Big Help Out and this brilliant report on skills-based volunteering. What we were trying to do is we were inspired by what we saw in the pandemic. 12.4 million people volunteered in the pandemic, including Lloyds Banking Group and through this programme. 4.6 million of the people who volunteered for the first time in their lives, of which 3.8 million said they wanted to go on volunteering. And when Catherine and I started to talk about that, it kind of blew our minds to say, why does it take a pandemic to get something like that happening? So how do we learn from that and play forward what we've seen? And the idea between the Big Help Out is very simple. All the best ideas are very simple. So the first thing was we wanted to raise awareness of volunteering. Why does that matter? Because 1 in 5 people say they don't volunteer because they've never thought of it, never even crossed their minds. So we were inspired. I'm on the board of Comic Relief, where André used to work, and it was how do you use a public awareness campaign to just get in the public's consciousness the importance of volunteering. And then, secondly, how do you make it as easy as possible to volunteer as well? And interesting, the number one reason, if you look at the research from NCVO as to why people don't volunteer, it's because they're concerned about an ongoing commitment. They just, I can't commit the next 30 years of my life to volunteering every week. Although that does happen. I'm currently Chief Executive of the Scouts, and that does happen there, I have to say. So, and I think there's a lot that's in this report that's quite interesting. That how do you get people to make that first step? And it's often because people don't have the confidence or think, I've got nothing to offer. But of course, everyone's got something to offer. And you've just got to nudge people sometimes to encourage them, to ask them, and then make it easy, which is why we developed this app, where for the Big Help Out, you put your postcode in, you choose your cause, and that shows you a load of opportunities locally. And we did it last year, and 7.2 million people took part in the Big Help as part of the Bank Holiday Monday of the Coronation. And this year, now, I can't tell you the actual numbers, and I'll tell you why, because we're releasing them on Monday. And the delivery partner of the Big Help Out is the Together Coalition. And John Knight, the chief exec of Together, is here at the back of the room. I'm sure he's only here, so I won't release the numbers. But what I can tell you is that millions of people, again, have volunteered this weekend. That's uplifting. That's worth celebrating. And that's worth seizing. And if you look at what's in this report on skills-based volunteering, you've got very similar themes about how do you encourage ongoing volunteering? How do you draw in people who don't normally volunteer to just help, the role of corporates, the role of businesses, to just nudge those behaviours forward? And ultimately, how do you do it at scale? And that's what this is about for me. It's about what you've seen over the last 10 years is totally inspiring. How do we now take that to scale? How do we reach thousands and thousands of more people? And what you also saw in terms of this particular program is the range of opportunities that are there from very different, diverse charities across the sector. 168,000 charities in England and Wales there are, most of them small. But I was struck by what Kathy said about, that was such a beautiful story about with Glyn, because it's about relationships. This is about relationships. It's about human connections and how when you spend time with someone, you learn more as an individual. But if you're a mentor, and I say this as a mentor to different people over the years as well, you get as much out of it as the person you're mentoring. You learn more about yourself, I think, as a leader, than or as much as the person that you're mentoring as well. It's about kindness and human connection. And as you've heard, that leads to 3 wins. Now, how many people in the room are volunteers? Show of hands. Okay, right. Everyone who have got their hands down, we'll be speaking to you as you leave here to give you a volunteering opportunity. But, you know, for those of you who are, you know that win number 1 is that volunteering is good for you as an individual. It's good for your skills. It's good for your well-being. It's good to be part of something. It gives you a sense of purpose. It gives you connection. Where are the pro bono economics team? Are they here? Anyone from pro bono economics? Right, these guys, they have got a wealth of evidence that proves that the difference this makes to you. Pilot Light as well. So it's all there. If you go to Mind, 5 Ways to Wellbeing, the giving of time is fundamentally important to your well-being. It makes you happier. And from the reports we've seen that the foundation have produced with the CIPD in the past as well, it gives you a sense of pride in the workplace and your employer. And that's why the second win is about the win for business. Now, my father was not a toolmaker, but he ran a family business. And this is very, very personal to me. Purpose-driven business really, really matters to me because I grew up on a high street in the Fens, and it was a furniture and drapery shop, and it was 4 generations. It was set up in 1876, and that shop, yes, it obviously was there to provide a living to the family, but it was run like a social enterprise. I mean, I sometimes say it was run like a not-for-profit, and it didn't make much profit in the last 10 years of its existence. But the reason why that mattered is it shaped who I was. Everyone in the shop was volunteering. It was providing a contribution to the community. And so one of the great attractions for me joining the foundation is also about joining the Lloyds Banking Group, because the vision of helping Britain prosper really matters. Purpose-driven business really, really matters. And of course, you heard earlier from Tom, it's good for the reputation of the bank, but it's at the heart, I think, of any modern, forward-looking people strategy as well. And there's 2 stats from that. One is that, and this is a Pilot Light blog that I was reading. So Dr. William Fleming of the Wellbeing Research Institute from the University of Oxford. They did big research, 233 organisations, 46,000 people. That's a big sample size, right? Now, this is quite sobering for HR directors, if there are any in the room. All wellbeing initiatives failed, right? Apart from one, which is volunteering. It's the only wellbeing initiative that is making a difference to employees' well-being. And then secondly, the productivity gains, and this is again, I'm not on commission with pro bono economics, I have to tell you, but it's another pro bono Pilot Light report. If expanding workplace volunteering to all employees could increase net productivity by 1.6 billion to 2.8 billion pounds per year. So, if you like, there's the fourth win, which is to the economy and to society. And the third win, is what we're here for at the foundation, which is the win for small charities, the vital role that small charities play in the health and fabric of this country, and the value of role that those volunteers play to make those charities make the difference. That's what we do. We're here as a foundation to serve small charities that are serving their communities. And you know, what we know from recent research as well is that 4 out of 10 charities don't have enough volunteers to achieve their objectives. So this really, really matters to the prosperity and health of small charities as well. That's why we as a foundation are going to continue to support and encourage others to do the support skills-based volunteering, and we're encouraging others to do the same. So let me just finish by saying, look, I think we're at a moment for the country. I really do. But whoever is the government on the 5th of July, the government on its own can't set the conditions to deal with the needs of our communities. I mean, here we are in East London, you know, where I used to be a student down the road in Queen Mary. You know, we're in a bit of a mess, right, in many of our communities. The demands of people and the needs of people in personal crisis is vast and significant. And it's only by government working with civil society and business and public services that we will get the systems change that we need to make the impact and the change we want to see, and I know we can achieve, if we're really going to help Britain prosper. And that's why this work, this report, is not just a programme, it's not just an initiative. We need to go out and be evangelists for how people in the workplace, in businesses, are allowing their staff to achieve the difference in civil society, in our communities. And, you know, in our 40th year next year of the foundation, I'm clear that volunteering is going to be central to that, skills-based volunteering, and how we build on that programme. But it's going to be about how do we now ramp that up for the scale and the ambition that's needed for the demands in the country, and together we can all be evangelists to make that difference. Thank you very much.
Brilliant. Thank you very much for that, Matt. That brings us to the end of this bit of the session. Just to let you know that we have two spaces, these two spaces, this room and the room next door, until 6:30 to continue the conversation. In terms of questions, if you have any questions on anything that we've spoken about, want to continue the conversation, do come and speak to a member of the foundation staff. We're all here, we've got the green badges on. Or we also have colleagues from the bank's community engagement team with us, who are ready to talk about the nature of the work that we do. Just a show of hands, there we go. We've got Sam and Emily there. And also, you'll have received, you should have all collected a small card when you arrived with WIN on one side of it. That's it. And what we'd encourage you to do is to use the time that we now have to share with one another your reflections on your skilled volunteering WIN, and/or what you're planning to explore about skills-based volunteering. And we'd love it if you could jot something down on that, indicating whether you're a volunteer, charity, business, who knows, you might tick more than one of those boxes too. And hand your card to a member of staff or our feedback box. Where's that feedback box? Outside, there we go, on your way out. We're really keen to understand what you'll be taking away with you having come to today's session, and to think about what we might do next. Refreshments also available next door, so do enjoy those when you get out. But I also wanted to do a really, really big thanks to the whole team from the foundation for pulling together today's event, and also for our tech and AV support. So just a big round of applause for the colleagues. Brilliant. They've all made this event possible, and from a germ of an idea however many months ago to getting to this stage, a phenomenal achievement. Also to our panel, who really brought the report to life with their own experiences, different calls to action. A massive thanks from me as well. To our interpreters who are here as well for joining, and to everyone here who've taken the time to come and join us for the event today. Massive thanks, and let's have a catch up over a beverage of your choice.